think it's 6:30. Call this meeting to order. Will, would you like to lead us?
Sure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hey, hopefully you've had time to take a look at the minutes. Oh, thank you, appreciate that. Taken time to look at the minutes from the November 8th, from the October 25th meeting. So were there any corrections? Not, would anyone like to make a motion?
And I'll move that we accept the meetings of the last minute of the last meeting.
Thanks, Will. A second from anyone? Thanks. There's a motion made and seconded to accept the last minutes from the prior meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Right, moving on. We've got recognitions and reports. We have someone here from the middle school. Kendall? Wonderful.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Kendall Dolan, and I'm an 8th grader at KMS.
Great.
Here's what's happening at our school. Cross country, football, and volleyball all ended the week before MEA. Boys basketball started 3 weeks ago, and we have 12 total teams, 6 for 7th grade and 6 for 8th grade. We had our first concerts of the year for music students. They all went great, and everyone did fantastic. 6th grade orchestra and band will have their first concert in December, as will the rest of music students, because it'll be their second. In 7th grade, Penny Awards will start the week of November 14th. This supports our Life Skills Special Olympics and Dream Adaptive students. Ms. Clark directed our sock drive at KMS, and students and family donated 586 socks, beating last year's total of 580. All were donated to the Heart Locker. Parent-teacher conferences were held on November 3rd. We had a great turnout of teachers meeting students' parents. KMS Holiday Food Drive is the week of December 13th. Last year, we supported 20 KMS families in need and made a large donation to Lions Food Drive. We collected 3,948 food items, 58 turkeys, and 9 hams. Talent show auditions will be held before Christmas break, and the talent show will be performed after break. The musical this year is Lion King. Thank you for letting me update you, and you're welcome to stop by whenever you can.
Kendall, does anyone have any questions for Kendall?
I have a comment. You are the most well-spoken middle schooler I've ever
Thank you.
heard. No ums, no stumbles. You did great. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Kendall. Yeah, that was very impressive. Okay. Ivy, let us know what's going on at Flathead.
Okay, so I'm Ivy. I'm the senior class president. We sort of have a busy month of November. This upcoming Friday, we have the Veterans Day event, which will be held in the main gym. I'm honored to serve as the MC for this event, which is pretty exciting. We also have a service speaker, Rick Bellistry, who is an Army veteran, West Point graduate. We also have about 30 other veterans, I think, that will also be celebrated, and that is at 9 o'clock in the FHS gym, if any of you want to attend. We also had parent-teacher conferences with the end of Q1, and there was a huge turnout. All my teachers said it was like crazy busy. It was good. We We also had a mock election, which was a really great experience for real world, and everyone will be voting pretty soon. This was conducted by the social studies teachers, and all students were able to vote. We also have our fall blood drive coming up. It's tomorrow. Students 16 and older are able to donate blood, and this is one of our school service projects, and we always have a really, really good turnout. Lots of people have already signed up, and it's held right here. Speech and debate has kicked off with the Kalispell tournament last weekend with 17 schools, 353 competitors, and 260 judges. And the flex room was used for assigning judges throughout the tournament. We have Art Club is going to Seattle, November 28th. I'm a part of Art Club, and I'm very excited to go see Seattle and all the art. And then we've had a lot of field trips. We had some IB science students conducting research on Flathead River, and then our biomed students at Logan Health that were able to talk to healthcare professionals about just their careers, which was a really great experience. We have High School Musical coming up this Friday and Saturday, I think Thursday too, which is, I just went and saw the dress rehearsal and it was really good, so. And then Brave Mentoring has had its 5th lesson for the freshmen. I think it's going really, really well, and we can see that they're participating more and more, which is the goal. So it looks like they're getting pretty comfortable. So that's all. Any questions? Yes.
Do you offer the kids any incentive for the blood drive?
No,
They just do it.
they just do it.
Awesome.
They're like really into it. Yeah.
Do they? No? Okay. Okay. There's.
Yeah.
Okay, so food. Okay, I wondered if food.
Thank you.
And we've got our Glacier High School, our flag football team, state champions.
Hi, I'm Abby Weber. I'm a senior at Glacier.
Hi, I'm Stacia Thomas, and I'm a junior at Glacier.
And we just wanted to start out by saying a couple of thank yous. We have a huge thank you to the Atlanta Falcons for kind of sponsoring and like starting this whole thing up, and also like funding this awesome trip that we got to go on, which I'll talk a little bit about later. A huge thank you to Mark Dennehy for having the courage to say yes to a new sport and offering it at Glacier. And for one of the only 3 schools to do it. Another thank you to the School District 5 School Board for saying yes, and to our administration and our staff for helping out with.
We had 5 captains this season. One of them was Sydney Brusso, Noah Fincher, Kai Johnson, Kiara Sullivan, and Abby Weber. We had 2 seniors as captains, Sydney Brusso and Abby Weber. We had a great opportunity to experience the crosstown matchup at Legends Field. It was a different perspective of a crosstown compared to when you're in the student section of like a normal football game. It was televised on SWX, and Glacier won. Yeah.
Okay. And as I was saying, so the Atlanta Falcons funded a trip for Butte, Flathead, and Glacier to go to Seattle. And so we left Friday pretty early, and it was a long day of travel. But then the next morning, we got to go see a Falcon walkthrough, which was super fun, like their practice. And then later that day, we got to walk around campus and go to the University of Washington versus Stanford game, which was a super cool experience. But we got to meet a couple of the players too at the walkthrough. And then the next morning, we got to go see the Seahawks versus the Falcons game. And overall, it was a super fun experience that we got to be a part of. And yeah.
For our state championship game, we went to the Washington Grizzly Stadium.
It was a battle towards the end because it was, I think the score was, it was tied. It was tied, yeah, in overtime, and so we had to play to win. We scored the first touchdown, and then we got our extra point, and then Flathead also scored. So then they went for two, and then Noah Fincher had pulled the flag right before this. So, yeah, we won in our state champs, so that's awesome. And we just want to say a huge thank you for the opportunity to have all these experiences, and we're looking forward to growing the sport in Montana. Any questions?
Abby, where do you see flag football going in the state of Montana? Is this something you think more girls will be actively involved in, or?
I think it actually had a really good turnout for the first year with only 3 teams. Like, we played multiple games every weekend, even if it was just jamboree style. And then, like, with the state championship, obviously, there's only 3 teams, so it wasn't, like, anything huge. But, like, it was a really cool thing to be a part of, and I think it will hopefully take off and more schools will start.
One of the concerns was that it would pull girls from other sports. Do you think that happened, or do you think this is just another opportunity that people that weren't gonna play another sport were gonna play football?
Well, we did have a couple of girls, like, quit volleyball or quit soccer, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because there are a bunch of people who want to play those sports, and if those girls don't want to play those sports, then they're more than welcome to play it. And try something new, because that's always. Thank you, guys.
Hey, Beth? Yes, and now we have an update what's going on at Glacier.
Good visualize while we right?
What's that?
Homework 3?
Yeah, homework.
He's a man who loves.
Nice handout.
Good prep.
And those are some impressive young folks, aren't they? Middle school, both high schools as well. That's a tough act to follow. I want to first admit that when I presented last year, I immediately started thinking about this year, and so as I put this together, it really is I would say a year in review, but also a look ahead to some degree, because I think there's things that even happened at the end of last year that have carried into this year. So I want to make sure that we touch on some of those things. And last year, really in the second half, I spent a lot of time with some different webinars and things like that with Montana School Board Association. I mean, there were some times where I'd log in and Sue would be on there or Mike would be on there, and there was a lot of just learning about transformational learning and some of those things. And one of the things that I kept hearing was make sure we tell our story. And so that hopefully is what this does a little bit. And it is certainly by no means all-inclusive. And that whole process in general is hard to get your arms around. But what I felt like as I moved forward was to put this in terms of the strategic plan, because that document was very helpful for me and I think for our staff as well. And so I just want to acknowledge that you know, we do work on that, but it was very, I think very specific and really gave us some tangible things to work towards. So kind of keeping that in mind, I wanted to address a number of the things in there. And so this highlights some things. It's by no means complete. It's by no means done. For those of you that are English folks, I kind of likened it to an essay. It's not ever done. It's just due a little bit. So that's kind of my approach. That was for you, Micah. But it is consistently evolving. And the other piece that I would say on this is, as I'm putting it together, there are things that fit multiple goals within the strategic plan. Those are not mutually exclusive categories by any stretch of the imagination. So we could have an entire debate about where I placed these, but those are my best opinion on it at this point in time. So on the cover, you'll see we've got our mission, our vision, and then our current school theme listed there. And those are things that we talk about consistently with our staff. We put those things out there. You know, it's important to have those. And the mission is one that I think we've really, come back to a little bit this year with transformational learning. And then I would, as you open it up, I would reference the bottom of that inside page in there where that quote down there that says change is inevitable, the idea evolves and the mission remains. And I'm not smart enough to make that up myself, I'll be honest with you. I saw it hiking this summer when I was over in Mini Glacier, and I thought, that is perfect though. That is exactly what we're talking about, that our mission is the same. That has not changed, but our ideas need to evolve and that change is going to continually occur. So full credit to where that came from. I think the other thing for you to know about me and the building that we want to operate culturally is that we want things, we want our staff to feel empowered to bring ideas and to work from the classroom level and ideas that impact them, as opposed to me standing up there and saying, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And we want to encourage and support those things. And there's a number of things in here as well that fit within that. So just briefly talking goal one, you know, our Ascent program, that's an opportunity right now. We've got juniors, sophomores and juniors in that program working on with students that, you know, may be in risk of graduating, and we've been putting some time and effort into that program, and it's one that we have to continue to do some work on, I think, to find some permanent funding for it, but it's one that we're very proud of. I talk about discipline in there. I think it's important for you to know that, you know, there's been changes in laws that have happened, you know, particularly with the passage of the marijuana laws in the state, and we've done some work to make sure we're consistent with law enforcement and those things. And then consistency and consequences, and working not only with our administrative staff, but with the Flathead staff as well, to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're working with students. I think that's important. Restorative practices and suicide prevention, those were two things on the strategic plan that were very specific, and with Sarah's help and with Ben's help, we've made some significant gains there. I'll talk a little bit, there's some staff professional development, but we've included restorative practices training for staff. We just had our first one, we'll have our second one in January. And then I would say, to some degree, we've wrapped up our suicide prevention, where I'm pretty confident we're well over 90% of our teachers and coaches, and that includes our coaches that are not employed by the district in any other capacity, that we have trained them with Ben. So to give some credit to Mark Dennehy as well, that he coordinated that with coaches at the start of the year. And then we've had several professional development sessions with staff. So those have been, I think, very successful. You know, safety and security, I think you guys know that we did some work with armed intruder training stuff at the beginning of the year, but we actually just revamped a lot of what we did. We got our staff out in the building and did some training with them that was just looked different. I think it's important for them to know what our building does to help with that. That was very insightful for them. And then we did some trainings with our students and just reviewed some of that prior to some lockdown stuff there. And then our mentor program, we have a volunteer mentor program, 100+ students that come in the summer to do some training. They're active on freshman day. They go into classrooms, do different mentoring events, and so those are very important pieces of our program as well. And that seems to grow a little bit every year, but we have kids that do that as a volunteer opportunity, which, again, kind of that overlap, there's that piece with volunteering that's in goal 4, so I think that's an example of where that overlaps. I know we've talked a lot in the last couple of years of systems of support, so I didn't put a ton in there, but there's 3 things I think that were impactful. I presented to you last year on our academic virtues, and those are on the back page at the bottom there. And so I'll reference those a little bit. We're continuing to do some work with those, with our department leaders on what those look like in departments, tying them back to some of our research-based ideas. And then probably my favorite part of the job is once a month, recognizing students on those virtues, and teachers, you know, sending me a name and saying, hey, this is a student that really demonstrated curiosity in the class. And those, I think, are very important and very meaningful for students. You know, there's some of those kids don't spend time down in our office, so it's kind of interesting to see them come down there. But then there's other ones where that's a positive impact, and it's just really good to be able to recognize students with that. Indian Education for All, presented on this last year a little bit, that we were starting some work with a group called Unreserved. We're actually rolling that out in December, and it's an interdisciplinary unit in our 9th grade English classes that's got some close context reading, it's got some speaking and listening skills that it addresses, and it's a vetted program within the state. It's pretty powerful. We had the opportunity as AA principals to receive some professional development this summer from the lady that runs that organization. So we're really excited about that, and our English teachers are very much looking forward to this. And then just the use of data, and I think that can be there's a lot of ways you can, use data, but we were just talking with our department leaders recently. One example is that we were talking about course success rates, and there's always this idea of grades tied to attendance, and we know the attendance policy has come up, and so we gave them some information on what's really going on with, what students did last year, what their grades were and what their attendance was, because it's fascinating when you think that it's always attendance-based, but sometimes there's other things going on. And to allow them to have that data as they move forward and make decisions with transformational learning or on changes in courses, so they're making good, wise decisions on instead of what they think maybe is happening and what actually is. And there's some other examples of things we use down there with data and stuff as well. So, within goal 3, we are predominantly at department level at the high schools. I know you've got grade levels, you've got teams in other places. We are predominantly department level, but I would say we're also departmental, as like an English department, for example, but also course specific within that. And then also one of the things we're doing this year is within the district. In fact, Michelle and I just met this morning with Jody, and we set up some stuff for some of our early releases for district-wide departments to get together and spend some time as well, and outlining some things there. And that's not something that I think we've specifically put time in the past, so I think that's important as well. Established programs that are there, but I think some of the things that are in development that have come out of this transformational learning, we've got courses in art, English, outdoor pursuits as a PE course, science, that could naturally form some really nice outdoor education blocks, and there's some positives there. That's one that we're looking at as an example. And then we're looking at some different scheduling options to allow for better use of time, I think, and getting out of the, we have 7 periods a day and it works for a lot of our students, but there's some things we can do that are not substantially changing our schedules, but actually changing the course itself, and giving students more time to work in depth and things like that. So we're exploring some of those things within that learning environment piece. Student internships, this is one that's been very well received, I think, by our staff, probably more so than any single one item right now. With no advertisement, no registration, nothing along those lines. We've got students out right now, 8 students out in the community right now, in a law office, a physical therapy office, out doing research at the MSU Ag Extension Center out in Creston, a student doing some internship work with Dish RV, and then we've got students at Edgerton as well, and then additional 12 students for next semester. So some credit to Mike Kelly for his work there. And then we've talked about what does that look like for registration next year, because if you think about goal 6 and management and taking care of things, we need to be able to schedule students and get them into places and then manage FTE and courses and things effectively as well. So I think that's important. So Mike has done a really nice job with that. Family community engagement, the number of volunteer opportunities. Our National Honor Society actually made some changes to create more flexible options for students, a little less restrictive, and allowing students to find areas that they were interested in. I mentioned our mentors. I think other things, our staff and some of the work that they do, our booster club. I mean, there's a parent connection right there of folks that volunteer a lot of time. And then I put student-led because we've got a couple of young ladies that are doing another activity this year. It's a fundraiser, and I believe they chose United Way as the group they wanted to support. And I think it's important for us to support them in those endeavors as well. And it's a volunteer opportunity that they are taking on their own. It's not a course-specific thing, but they come to me and say, what do you think? Can you help? Can we do some things there? Provide them space, those types of things. So they're pretty powerful there. The community connection piece, I think, is really important for me. Some of these are ones that have been long established, and they're important to continue to maintain. We have a good standing connection with veterans of foreign war. The Exchange Club, we hosted the Memorial Day Field of Honor last year. We're actually going to be hosting that again this year on Memorial Day. They reached out to us and wanted to do that again. And then we're in talks as well to bring back the Vietnam Wall this summer. I believe it was down by Rose Hours a number of years ago, but that wall is now substantially larger, and they need a larger space, and they contacted us about using some space during the summer. So those relationships are really important, I think, to continue to maintain and work with. Those are a couple of examples. Our business department does academy nights, and we've got some of our business students here tonight, actually, but they bring in folks on about a monthly basis, some community members, guest speakers, guest directors in the music department. We're doing work currently with staff wellness with Logan Health. That's one of our professional development options. Greater Valley Health with, the clinic in our building, and then FBCC, I feel like we have an outstanding relationship with them through concurrent enrollment and dual credit and some things there and some partnerships. And those are some examples, but those are really important to me, to make sure we maintain those. And then with our partner districts, you know, from my standpoint, I reach out with all of our partner district principals and meet with them yearly. Our counselors do a ton of work with them. We've done a long-standing Glacier High for a Day at Evergreen with, incoming freshmen who go over, they go over and teach some classes to their eighth graders. And then Wolfpack Welcome and bringing those folks in. Those are some examples of things I think that fit into that certainly. As far as staff, I think, you know, in terms of staff recruitment, what I wanted to mention to you is that, we brought on outstanding folks this year. I'm very, very happy with our new staff. It's challenging. The piece that I think is important for you to know is that every single person that we hired at Glacier High in a teaching or para role either already lived in Kalispell or was coming back and had connections here. I think we know that and the challenges related to that, but that hit home for us. This was one of the first years I can remember where it wasn't somebody coming here. If that makes sense. Within the KEEP program, we support that thoroughly, and then I would add, we actually, when we onboard our new staff in the summer, I reached out, we had some staff that transferred within the district and brought them in as well. Made sure we, you know, shared with them some building goals and vision and things along those lines. Professional development, this is specific around the Wednesday early releases. We have several of those scheduled. We just completed one last week, building directed. These things came from the staff survey that was done last year and then from the strategic plan, and we've centered things around curriculum, around staff wellness, and then around the whole child SEL kinds of components. And so we, like I said, we've done the suicide prevention, we've done the restorative practices, we've had some tech, we've had some resource library kinds of things. We've got, like I said, we've got wellness every single time we're doing that. A connection with that we're working with Logan and bringing in one of their health coaches for our staff. And then I think the other one that I would mention here is we've carved out some purposeful staff time for them to just connect and do that in ways that are maybe not curricular or maybe not professional development related, but giving them some time to just spend with each other. And here's an example. You know, we've had open house and we've had parent-teacher conferences in both of those nights, and we've been able to carve out a little bit of time for them to sit down and be able to have a meal together. And at parent-teacher conferences last week, one of the things that's, I don't know if I would say it's a tradition because it's only happened a few times, but we've had staff that have actually cooked for the rest of the staff. And they've said, I have a recipe and I'd like to, and we've been able to provide that. And that's been really nice and I think well received. And it's just it may seem like a small thing, but it's not. And for our staff to know that, I think is really important. So this was a staff member that took the time to do that, and we were able to support that. And that was good. Then management and prioritization, I think, you know, we're continually forward planning in terms of budgets and thinking about what we need moving ahead. And then facility-wise, I think you guys are aware we're as big as we've ever been. You know, our specialized spaces are full. You know, art, science, music, CT, health and PE. We've got a little bit of room in some other areas, and I know when we toured last year, those of you that were there, we talked about that as well. The siding replacement project is one that's been there for a while, but then we've had we were reviewing, constantly making sure that that building stays in a like-new position, that we're taking care of things. Year in review, in a nutshell. Why? Questions?
Questions, one easy, one hard.
Yeah.
What's the form of the I know we heard a little bit about the internships last week. What's the format of them? Are they in a class? Is there a teacher oversight they can stand with, or what's the form?
Right now, they are actually after school. They are not conflicting with course schedules at this point in time. Those were ones that were, for whatever reason, to be honest with you, they just happened to materialize that way. What we're looking at next year is, will they be for a 1, 2, how many periods? Some of that's going to depend on the employer. Some of that's going to depend on the student. I mean, obviously are you on track for graduation? Do you have credits that you need versus does this fit in a little more flexible way? From a credit standpoint right now, things are elective. I mean, but we're working on, and that being more specific down the road. That's probably the next step. So that format is very much not a class, not taking away from a class at this point in time. I do see that being part of their day though down the road.
Question number two
That-
is,
That was the hard one?
no.
Oh.
Well, maybe.
No.
In your vision, you say your vision is to be the top high school. What does
Mhm.
top mean?
Oh, my gosh, that
Sorry.
has been a question that's been around, I think for the 16 years that we're open. I think you want to make sure that you are taking care of students the best you can. You want to provide as many options for students as you can. You want to set them up for their success down the road, college, career, whatever that is. I mean, those are some of the things. Yes, there's some data. I mean, we see things in publications all the time. You know, top high schools in the state. I don't know if I necessarily put a lot of stock in that sometimes, but they're gauges. We just want to be recognized as doing excellent work. And we can define top as in, I mean, do we feel like we're doing the best that we possibly can? That's important to me. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's really a hard question. And I think if you go from year to year, I mean, that ebbs and flows as to where you're at. I mean, some years we do really well on some things that are external, you know, ACT scores, AP scores, things like that. Sometimes it's based on how we're handling discipline. We're off to a great start in that. So have we made gains in working towards that top high school idea? Yeah, absolutely. We're back, I think, some sense of normalcy. That's a hard question.
Well, it
It's
might
really
have been a
hard to
hard
put some
question, but it was
metrics
an excellent answer.
So.
More questions? Brad, I have one.
Yes.
Okay, so we had the grant that helps cover fees for AP testing.
The advanced opportunities?
Yes, and I was wondering, did that affect the number of kids signing up for AP testing?
Actually, I don't know yet because those numbers are finalized in a couple of weeks. Our initial response is that we will be up some. I couldn't give you a specific at this point. In fact, I just went and talked to one of our counselors today about, are we on track? Are we getting our ordering taken care of? Because it's all finalized here, I think the 15th. So I expect us to be up some. Our numbers overall are up, so there's a little bit of that correlation. But yeah, I mean, kids have been pretty responsive to, wow, this is a pretty good deal. But I don't have a specific number for you right now.
Anyone else? Well,
Thank you. I
Brad.
appreciate all the work that every one of you do and your support for us and for our schools. And anytime you would like, you are welcome to stop by. I know we'll do a tour, but I'm happy to just visit at any point in time. So.
Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Well, next, we're going to hear from Ben Dorrington. Wonderful to have you here tonight.
Thank you so very much. Can everybody hear me okay? It's usually not a problem. I project very well.
You still get to talk into the mic.
I may walk around a little bit. I like to, get up and get the energy flowing a little bit. Micah said I had about 20 minutes, and when a suicide prevention specialist has an audience, we can easily fill that. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, and hopefully we can make it through. So I think I sat here about almost 9 months ago to the date as I was getting sworn in, or whatever that process is, and I stood here and thanked you, and I said, I'm not going to let you down in this position. And 9 months later, it seems like yesterday, really, to be honest, but I think I can hold my head up high and say that so far we've done a good job, and we haven't let anybody in this room down. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been able to accomplish. Personally, I'm not great at tooting my own horn, so, I'm more on the, educational side of things. So it's going to be a little suicide education with everybody in the room, and then kind of what this position has become. So hopefully we can just roll through these really big. But everybody knows, and everybody wants to know, how big of a problem do we really have? I think in this community, we all kind of know that we have a problem and have heard that, but sometimes the numbers are important to go over, just to put it in, statistical reference. So if we can just go through these really quick, we have about 8 billion people on this earth. Every single year, about 16 million people attempt suicide on the globe as human beings. And about 800,000 people do die from suicide every year. So on the globe, that's about one person every 40 seconds. By 2013 CDC, the CDC says depression is going to be the #1 health concern in the world. So depression, more than anything else over the next decade or so, is going to be the #1 health concern that human beings are faced with. As we look at the countries with the highest suicide rates, interestingly enough, the #1, people are always interested to know this is a little country in Africa, but statistically, the interesting thing about it is it has the highest, the lowest elevation of any country on Earth. So their lowest elevation, base elevation, is 4,500 feet, and it shows that altitude's connected to depression and other mental health issues. We look here, number 23, the United States, out of all the countries on Earth, which makes us, unfortunately, probably #1 of all the wealthy nations of all the countries on Earth. We scroll through these pretty quickly. Just as far as suicide is concerned, it's the 12th leading cause of death. 46,000 Americans die every year, and that's 1.2 million suicide attempts. And that's really a staggering number if you put that in reference. That's like San Diego, California, or Dallas, Texas. Those are the populations of those cities, and that's how many people in the United States are attempting suicide every single year. As we take a look, these are just calls going into the suicide hotline every year. You know, we're always a year or two behind on statistics. For 2021, that's definitely larger than this number. So we just see that, you know, people are reaching out more and more than they ever have. Interestingly enough, people are calling about 50% of the time and then initiating text or chats online. So we're starting to see kind of that electronic revolution with mental health come along now with these numbers. As we keep scrolling along here, here's just some interesting facts. That males complete suicide at a rate 4 times higher than females, but females are about 3 more times likely to attempt. And that's because the lethal means that men use are often firearms, where women are less likely to use a firearm in a suicide attempt. About 45% of completed suicides actually visit their primary care physician 30 days prior to their death, and then about 1/4 of those visit the doctor within 24 hours of their death. So what that can tell us is we can definitely get better in the hospitals as far as how we're screening, you know, community members that are going on there. Suicide's on the rise with children. In any classroom, at any given time, it's likely that 1 boy and 2 girls in that classroom, high school classroom, have made a suicide attempt in the past year. Biggest factor with suicide ideation in adolescents is parental disconnect. And very interestingly, in Montana, a D student is almost 400 times more likely to attempt suicide than an A student. So we'll roll right through here. Just some other really interesting facts. This talks about mortality in the United States. When we look at homicide, this is people reaching out and killing another person. There's about 45,000 of those in the United States every year. There's actually 46,000 suicides in this country every year. So this is just a staggering fact. I couldn't believe this when I first looked it up, but you're actually twice as likely to die by suicide in this country than you are with homicide. So as we're rolling on here, suicide in Montana, we've been in the top 5 for the past 30 years. I think that's important, and we'll talk about why it's kind of Montana and where we live is a perfect storm. But it's important to point out that it's just a problem with where we live. It's not necessarily anything that we're doing wrong. We could just be doing a lot more based on what we're dealing with. So firearms are the most common means, and then, you know, just some other statistics there about young people. This is our rate of suicide per 100. We flipped off that 0, sorry about that, in the state of Montana, which certainly puts us well above, you know, in the top 5 consistently. If we move on here, Flathead County, you'll just see here in 2021, the suicide rate in Flathead County was about 40 per 100,000, which is about 4 times the national average. Moving on through the statistics here, this is probably one of the more interesting slides to people. This is kind of the perfect storm and why we struggle with suicide in this area. Some of these things we can control, some of them we can't. Vitamin D deficiencies, we just have a lot of gray days up here. We don't see the sun much, and that affects how we process chemicals, and that can cause depression and a lot of health issues, and we just don't think about this. If I go get blood work done at the hospital, it's gonna come back and the doctor's gonna read it. Vitamin D's not on there. We need to do a better job of asking doctors to screen for this and just making this part of our screens. We have a high concentration of people that attempt suicide in Montana. We have a high concentration of veterans, American Indians, and then middle-aged white guys. We use alcohol as a coping strategy in Montana. This is something we can get better at as adults. We can do a better job with substance abuse education. Altitude, this is a huge one. Just when you start looking into this and doing statistics, when you get to about 1,800 feet, suicide rates exponentially increase. So just the way we're able to process oxygen at altitude, a lot of times can cause mental health issues. You know, if you keep going up in altitude, ultimately we all know like the death zone in Mount Everest, right? Where you don't even have enough oxygen to live anymore. And so certainly how we process oxygen has a direct result to our mental health, and we just, people that live at altitude struggle with it. Social isolation, we can't do much about that. We have about 7.6 people per square mile. The average is 94. If I always ask, when I give a presentation, I always ask, well, what state has the lowest rate of suicide, or the best, whatever you want to call it? And it's actually New Jersey. And certainly, probably a lot of us in this room have been to New Jersey. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing state on earth. There's a lot of islands, but they have a lot of people. So this connectedness factor is certainly something that we struggle with in Montana. Access to lethal means, and we have a lot of firearms in Montana. I saw a crazy stat that we actually have more guns in Montana than the whole country of Libya. And so I think the average person in Montana owns like almost 6.5 guns. And so if we take a look at that, that's millions and millions and millions of firearms in this state. And one thing we want to do is lock guns up and reduce access to lethal means. That's something that we'll talk about. A lot of poor people in Montana, we just don't, because of that, we don't have a lot of behavioral health services, and then stigma is something that we struggle with overall as humans, just mental health stigma. We keep scrolling through here just really quick. Well, what are we doing to help address this problem? So they created this really innovative position as a necessity, right? We were coming in kind of on the tail end of a contagion. You know, the position was funded through a grant, and, you know, I stood up here and said, I'm willing to take this on. I think this is my calling. And so we really want to promote, you know, physical and emotional wellness for staff, students, and families. And then we have a broad range approach that, you know, talks about how we want to deliver services to all of those people, specialize that for some of those people, and then there's going to be a small group of people that need a very, you know, intensive and selective group of services. So as we look through here, this is our approach to suicide prevention, right? We're not doing any groundbreaking work here. This is laid out by these foundations and research institutes. And so we know how to address the problem. We just need somebody to be able to dedicate time to doing so. So as we scroll through here, you know, I always thought that my first thing that I really have to focus on is just preventing suicides, right? That's just what the position calls for initially, and will always call for. And this is how we do it. We take a look at prevention strategies, we take a look at intervention strategies, and then post-intervention strategies. So this is certainly a way that I would say, here's what I'm doing as far as suicide prevention in all these different areas. So if we scroll through really quick, one thing that we want to do in prevention is we want to identify students and staff at risk. So one thing we can do better here is screening. We just need to know the students that are struggling, right? What's the best way to do that? Just ask them. Well, there's lots of ways that we can do this. Currently, my office is at Linderman, and we're involved in a pilot project with the Rural Behavior Institute, where they've given us a grant to be able to screen kids and then be able to see which ones are screening high or, you know, likely of self-harm. And then we're able to connect kids with services that day, get them in front of a counselor that day to do risk assessments, and then depending on what that might look like, you know, whatever services they may need. So we actually just need to do a better job of doing that. We actually, and a lot of people in this room may not know this, but I just was on a call with Department of Human Health Services, where they're giving the Rural Behavioral Health Institute money to screen 20,000 Montana students. And they want Kalispell Public Schools to lead that charge. And so right now, I'm sitting on funding to screen 20,000 students. And it's kind of a first come, first served thing. So, you know, I may be back at another board meeting talking about how we're going to do that and what that looks like. And that's something that I really want to jump on. Other things that are happening, we have this teacher, this health teacher, David Baker at the middle school, who just kind of, you know, he made this Google check-in form originally, where he would just kind of have his students communicate electronically, you know, how you feeling, is anything going on, let me know, hit me with, you know, any concerns, and kids started communicating, and it really developed into something. Well, one of his buddies was a web developer, and they sat down and they developed this whole website where teachers can check in with their students. It all goes to a dashboard where the counselors and admin can see kids that are struggling that week or that month. And we can really be able to identify who these kids are if we're just able to implement these programs and can continue to develop these resources. But we do have the tools that are out there. So there's lots of things that we can do there as far as prevention, and this is where most of this work's gonna come, right, in prevention. So we can do gatekeeper training. Brad talked about that. We've been able to train 20% of Glacier's staff, basically. I've worked with Michelle quite a bit in training coaches and talking to her staff and different developments that I'm doing there. We've been able to train the food workers in Kalispell Public Schools, all the transportation people. And so we're really have put a focus on that, and we're going gangbusters with that. But community integration. So one thing that we know about suicide prevention is that, you know, the schools are like the center of the hub, right? Because that's where the kids are for a lot of the day, that's where a lot of the services are. And so, you know, this position is really like a center of the community and how we're addressing mental health. So like this position is sitting on the Flatton County Suicide Task Force, you know, the KPS Suicide Task Force. I sit on the Maternal Mortality Review Board, where we review all the deaths in the county and talk about how they're preventable and what we can do to do that. You know, we sit on the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, WALK, the Communities That Care Board, One Valley, One Voice. So there's all these different things going on in the community where we're integrating leaders at Logan Health and the Kalispell Police Department and the Sheriff's Office. And, you know, just all these different people that want to come together to address this problem, and they do look to the schools as we're kind of the center of the community to help them in a lot of their efforts. So we certainly need somebody to do that. We want to promote health seeking, something that we can do a lot better on is just working with students that when something is going on, to find people and know who to go to and what to say to help your friends. Another thing we can do is reduce lethal means. So in conjunction with the county health department, one thing you'll see us doing is we're going to do a gun lock initiative, where we're going to have any parents, you know, of Kalispell Public School students that want a gun lock can come in and get a gun lock for free. The county health department is going to supply them. We're just kind of going to be a hub or a distribution center, and then we'll raffle off a safe at the end of it. But it'll be a cool thing, and you guys are certainly invited to stop by any school, pick one of those up, and get those guns locked up at home. We want to promote that message. The big one here is certainly just enhancing life skills and resilience. So this is where our social emotional learning and whole child learning concepts come in, working with Sarah and the teachers and just really integrating how from even kindergarten and pre-kindergarten, we can intertwine, you know, mental health into academic curriculum. And it's not that hard. We don't need to retrain teachers. We just need to keep it deliberate and intentional. And it can get done, and we're doing it. And it's really cool to see. We can get better at physical health screenings. We can get better at drug and alcohol treatment programs, which we're doing and trying to bring these to the schools. One thing we're finding at Linderman is kids are really struggling with substance abuse. You know, marijuana is legal. Kids are scoring off the charts on our screeners. So we're trying to work with communities to bring the substance group into Linderman, so we can help these kids that want help and give them the access to do it. And what we find is when the services are available at the school, kids will show up. They won't go to the substance abuse group after school, but if it's in the school time, they will go. So other things we're doing, and just to honor time, we'll go through this really quick. But, you know, key access to this is ensuring individuals have access when they need it. So we've been working to streamline, you know, our risk screening tools. I was just on the phone with Evergreen today talking about, hey, Ben, we use this screener and that screener. What's best practices? What can we do for this community? You're going to see a lot of these kids at high school. How can we get to them early? So we're working on that level as well. You know, we need to work with Logan Health better. One thing that I'm hearing from just the KMS counselors the other day is we've got a student or two at Pathways, and they're coming back, and we don't have an aftercare plan integrated to their education at all. So we need to sit down with those people at Logan Health and talk about how when our students and staff, you know, come out of Pathways, what are the best ways to help and support them? And so as we keep going on through here, there's just a lot that we're doing. Postvention's been interesting. This has been, you know, after a suicide, what have we been able to do to kind of stop contagions and support those people? So we actually have a teacher at Peterson who lost her husband to suicide about a year ago, but she started a thing called Bluebird boxes, where when there is a loss in the community, basically we can show up with a box that has like tea and gift cards so they don't have to cook, and community resources and counselor lists, and call this number if you wanted to be connected with somebody that's going through the same thing. But really what that does is that gives me a foot in the door. And I've been sitting down in living rooms, you know, a day or two after a crisis with kids in the school system. We've been grieving and we've been trying to support these families. And, you know, that's one of the harder sides of the job. It's something we've got to do because we don't think about a lot of kids in this community lose parents to suicide. And we've got a lot of these kids in our school system that need a ton of support. And then, of course, certainly integrating with Nate Shoe Foundation, Tamarack Resource Groups, our support groups in town, bereavement with families, all of those things we've been focusing on as well. So, we also try to go to funeral and memorial services. It's important to have a representative from Kalispell Public Schools there, you know, and we try to get there when we know there is one and we can get there. And then certainly working with the media and then social media relations about how we're going to report these or not report them to prevent contagions and how we can handle that and just maintaining those relationships. So, and then we have a lot of crisis support. Part of this job too is something that I can do is not only with suicide prevention, but also other threats. You know, we've dealt with violent threats towards the schools on social media. We've dealt with students that got in a gunfight and were shooting out with each other. You know, so there's these types of issues happening in the communities that, you know, kind of this position has just been able to give extra attention and extra support to. So as we go through, you know, we just also eventually want to put a major focus on our staff and employee wellness. So that's a big part of what Sarah and I have been doing too, is just forming a comprehensive wellness program. We've been putting out a monthly newsletter. We've been getting together for some hikes when it was Physical Wellness Month on our wellness wheel. We were able through Universal to get some t-shirts donated. They donated 50 t-shirts, so any teacher that comes to our wellness activities can, and other businesses too. I just got 4 lift tickets from Big Mountain, you know, that we can give away, you know, when people come and participate in wellness. And so these are some really cool things that we're just able to do in this position. And then ultimately, you know, we have to develop support for the parents. This is going to be a long-term goal, you know, but really helping parents learn how to talk to their kids is a major goal of mine in a long-term project. So those are some of the things that we're doing. And then we'll just get to the end of this just due to time. But if you guys have any questions or any other, you know, aspects to what I might be doing.
Early on, you talked about some environmental factors, and I wondered if there had been research or trials on changing, like you mentioned, lights, so do full spectrum bulbs help, or lower oxygen levels at altitude, you know, putting oxygen into the heating. I just wondered if we looked
Yeah,
at.
and I haven't seen a lot of that stuff. I think that's kind of where we're headed in our next phase of research. But what if, like, if we were to pump oxygen in some buildings at high elevations, what would happen, right? So I think those are complex studies and hard to put together. I just haven't found any. But certainly with lighting and vitamin D and over-the-counter supplements and things like that, there are ways that we have found to prevent some of those environmental factors.
As a veteran, I was concerned about the screening of kids. You know, some of them who join the military, if you go for a top secret clearance, and they go back even to elementary school, and I'm wondering if we're mass screening kids, everybody gets screened. Where are these records kept, or how are they how is that kept private from something like that where they might, you know, their kids, they don't know what they want to do for sure for the rest of their life, and maybe it's in some military intelligence or something, and now they can't get that job because of something like that.
It's a really interesting question. I used to work at Wilderness Treatment Center in Marion, which was inpatient drug and alcohol for kids. And we'd get kids from all over that would graduate and go on to do outstanding things. So occasionally the black Suburbans would come down and the guys in the black suit would want to interview us and ask us about a kid. So what we found, number one, is all of it's confidential, right? So you're just going to release information to anybody that you may want to release information to. So if I want to go to the FBI or something like that, I'm going to sign the right over to be interviewed, you know, by those people. But certainly, I don't think that any mental health thing like that would ever be used against anybody for screening. I think occasionally, like if you went to treatment, inpatient treatment, those types of things, that might get their hackles up, but it never really prevented any of our guys from getting into those service academies or those positions. I don't think a mental health screening would ever dictate a decision one way
Play
or
a
another.
big part.
What do you really think so?
Yes, sir. Did you have any of the kids like at from the Wilderness Treatment Center? Did you ever have any of them actually go into any of those services?
Oh, yeah, FBI, Secret
Really?
Service,
And
oh,
they
yeah,
never had a
multiple of them. They didn't have a problem as long
That's
as
great.
when they came and did the interview as part of their whole package, you know.
Right.
But these people also signed a release of information because they wanted to pursue that.
Right.
But they never asked about like the individual screenings, they never asked about like a drug history, they never asked about specifics, they just wanted to know the overall impression you had about the kid.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a question about the screening too. In places where they have had screenings before, are kids honest?
We're finding that they are, and that's something that I thought as well, right? Like, you're gonna put a screener in front of kids, and all of a sudden, they're gonna be honest about this stuff. But I think people wanna be honest about their mental health, and what we find is 95% of people that are struggling do reach out to somebody, right? And so it's almost a way that, it's almost, when you think about it, you're gonna get unbelievable levels of honesty, because if kids are struggling, then they're gonna branch out a little bit. One thing we're finding in Linderman is we thought they might be honest about depression and not so much about substance use, but we're finding that the correlation seems to be there, that the reliability is unbelievable. So they're saying like this is like 95% reliable, this specific test that this PhD doctor from the Rural Behavioral Health Institute developed. And it's just gangbusters. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. This was great. Come back again. This is the time that the board will allow 15 minutes for comment on public matters that are not on the main agenda. Members of the audience are encouraged to briefly address the trustees on an issue that is not on the main agenda. The chair of the board, vice chair, will seek comments from the audience on significant items as they occur. Public matters do not include any pending legal matters, private personnel issues, or private student issues. Please do not attempt to address such issues at this time, or you will be ruled out of order. Please note that individuals will be given 3 minutes for public comment. Public comment will also be allowed near the conclusion of the meeting for those wishing to give public comment but were unable to do so at the beginning of the meeting. So for any students back there who are learning about school board meetings and who are interested in addressing the board, this is your time. Shoot. Okay.
That's for a few.
Okay, all right, we can move on. Human resources, personnel, action items.
Yes, in front of you tonight is our bi-monthly report of hires, resignations, terminations, across various positions. Happy to report at the bottom of this list, we have quite a few substitutes to include in our hiring, so we're excited about that. But open to any questions.
There are no questions. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the new hires, resignations, retirements, terminations, state contract, and request for the
Well said. Thanks, Ursula. Second? Thank you. Been moved and seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Okay, next we're moving on to business. Is Tammy here or
No, I'm gonna,
stepping in?
I'm stepping in. So in front of you, you have, in this business section, we have some bus stop approvals for elementary, and then we also have bus stop approvals for district-wide. And then there's a mileage, increase for one of the routes for Kalispell Middle School. Every year, we start with what we know are our bus stops, and then someone moves to town or somewhere in the valley, and we have to add a new bus stop in, for a variety of reasons. These all have to be approved by, the school board, but they also go to review with the county transportation committee. And so we're just seeking approval on these items tonight. And the first one is, KMS bus stop locations.
Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah, Mike, just for clarification, so this allows for permissibly levy what we need to fund this also, is that correct?
Yeah, the increase to one of the routes in the mileage there. Yep.
Thank you.
There's been some safety issues and with the new long arms and do you feel that these are safe bus stops and anything we should be apprised of?
Yeah, I think we always try and prioritize, safety. Whenever possible, we try and move, a route off the road if possible. Where we aren't able to do that is when, the route has a dead end at the end of a street, for example. And then, anything that, trying to cross highways and things like that. I know early on this year, we had a couple of, bus arm incidents where people ran the bus arm and struck their vehicle against the bus arm. We haven't had any since, early on. I think people are aware. I've been, driving to and from school and have seen them in action. They're really hard to miss, literally and figuratively. So.
Like this is a KMS school bus stop, so this would be an elementary, motion. Is there someone willing to make a motion?
And I'd move to approve the 3 KMS school bus stops are required across the roadway per House Bill 2675B.
James Lance, someone willing to second?
I'll second.
Jennifer, any public comment? No? Motion's on the floor, has been made and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, passes unanimously.
All right, the next item is some high school, bus stop, locations. And 2 of them for Flathead High School are already approved for middle school stop locations. We just need to, run high school buses to stop at the same location. 2 buses would stop at the same location. One would pick up middle school and one would pick up high school, students. And then the other 2 were for Glacier, bus stops.
So in this case, we could have a, high school or elementary, motion made.
I move to approve 4 high school bus stop locations that require a school child to cross the roadway per HB 267-5B.
Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks, Heather. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, and then the next item, C, is to approve to add mileage. We're adding 2 miles to a particular route, number 440. And it basically, creates additional cost, those 2 miles. So for the remainder of the year, that's 242 additional miles. Using a calculation, and this has been approved by the, transportation committee. So we're good there. We just need to get board approval for that. So,
Mike, how many students are gonna get picked up in that 2 mile?
Well, this says 18, students live in that subdivision. K-5 students who live in the Lupine subdivision.
A new subdivision that we're adding in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And I'd move to approve the new application initial mile, 440.
Thanks, Lance. Is there a second? Thanks, Ursula. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
This is unanimously. Thank you. Is that it for transportation? Okay. Moving on to surplus property.
Yeah, and, Peter's gonna talk about this.
Oh, Peter.
Yep.
You're
I
up.
actually have,
Use your microphone.
D surplus property, for the elementary, and then E surplus property for, district-wide, and just provide just a cover page on there that the library provided of why they're weeding some of the material. There's also a resolution on there that's declared surplus that we need to advertise for 14 days before we can do it. And then also following that, board policy 2309, we can also share, materials within our schools once it's declared surplus, so there's some items in there, most likely that we'll be sharing. So the first one is the elementary, and it's specifically, for hedges. It's all of them are quite comprehensive list.
Okay. Peter, I have a question. I was trying to understand all this. When you said we can share it, how,
Once it's declared surplus, so like if they have
Yeah.
items at, Flathead High School, so there's a couple of items on there. What is it? Using Oculus, VR sets, so that the, like FHS library doesn't use, so
Mhm.
they probably can get used in other places, you know, instead of, declaring them or selling them or discarding
Mhm.
them. So if there's still a use within our district, then we share those resources.
You can share them across elementary and high school districts.
oh, okay.
So they could already go from Flathead to Glacier, but now they can go from Flathead to elementary.
Correct.
Could they also go to like our partner schools, like, Lakeside?
If we didn't use them.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from trustees? I'd entertain a motion.
And I'd move to approve the surplus property resolution as presented.
Thanks, Lance. Thanks, Scott. Any questions, public comment? Oh. Okay, there's a motion that's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Passes unanimously. Peter, I imagine you have the second
I've
one.
got the second one.
All
too,
right.
yeah. So, kind of same thing, I believe also back in June that, it was declared, surplus property for most of the textbooks through, the cycle one. So some of those items were declared, surplus back in June. So if you take a look at the weeded library items from Flathead High School, a lot of those are CD-ROMs, VHS, periodicals, a lot of different things. The GHS weeded library items, also includes the textbooks that, were replaced in cycle one. They still have all of those, they were holding on to them, just in case, the order didn't come in, so, they've actually held on to them, but anything else, again, with that resolution, has to be advertised, we have to hold on to 14 days before we can, declare them surplus.
Okay, I have another question. So if I was interested in 49 copies of AP Biology at this point, I'd be able to obtain them after 14 days?
Yes, you could,
Good to
for
know.
a price.
Good to know.
Give them to you at half price.
Okay. Okay. Is there anyone interested in making a motion on the surplus property?
I move to approve the surplus property resolution presented.
Thanks, Lloyd.
I'll second.
Thanks, Jennifer. We've got a motion made and seconded. Any public comment? Anyone willing to, I guess I'll,
Young lady back there,
Excuse
hand up.
I didn't see that. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, could you come up to the mic? Thank you. Come on up, and if you could, state your name as well.
Sure, is this on?
Thank you.
Is the green button on?
Thank you. Hi, my name's Sayla, and I'm a senior at Glacier High School this year. Is it still on? I can't hear. Okay. Hi, I'm Sayla. I'm a senior at Glacier High School. My question, I'm going to use the example of the AP biology textbook.
Yes.
If it was declared surplus property, but there were a finite amount, and there was like an excess demand, would the priority go to the school that originally owned the textbooks, or like how would that work in terms of priority use?
So just a good example for like, the AP that most likely replaced those textbooks, which are most likely outdated. So a lot of times, once we advertise, anybody has access to them. In the past, we've sold them to textbook companies, have bought them up at a minimal price. But we'll put it in the paper, within our paperwork, through our resolution, that we have to hold on to them for 14 days. We'll put a procedure in there for anybody that wants to, access any of those books. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Can I have,
And thank you for coming forward and asking that. That's great.
can I ask a quick question, Judith?
Mhm.
So, tagging on to that a little bit, if there was a high demand item, is it first come, first serve, or highest bidder? Both of those things? Yeah?
Yeah.
Have we ever had that? Do we have any ours? Do we sell like the?
I can just talk in the past on textbooks, is, once we put them out there, very few people would pick those up, and so, like I said, we would sell them at a minimal price to, textbook companies that usually come around asking if you have any surplus, textbooks. So it's really never been a bidded item out there, so, I would imagine on this, it's once we put a price on them.
Right, but what about something
But
like
if I were selling a Lamborghini
Yeah.
for the district, right,
Yeah.
we declared it surplus, then yes, it would go to the highest bid, yep.
Okay, all right.
I mean, we have farmers.
All right.
It's hard to come by.
Now you've got me really thinking about a Lamborghini. Okay, gotta move on.
We don't have one.
Okay, good to know.
For private sector.
All right, let's see, next item, MTSBA, this,
I don't think
Did you
I've
vote?
got.
You didn't vote.
oh, no, we didn't vote, excuse me. Okay, I guess we had a motion made and seconded, about the surplus property, but we hadn't voted. All in favor? Aye, thank you. Motion passed unanimously, thank you. Okay, moving on, the MTSBA fiscal year 24 dues revenue. This is an estimate. Mike, do you want to explain this?
Yep.
Sue, thank you.
I've explained this the last couple of years. So every year, Montana School Boards Association, does a complex calculation based off of, increases in, expenditures from their membership. And it was about 1.3% increase from last year to this year. And so their dues go up, that same amount. And so we budget for this every year. The difference between the dues from last year to this year is $223. And we're just getting real close to pushing about $20,000 or $24,000, I think. No, $19,874. So about $20,000 right now. And so with that membership, that's what that provides is obviously you get the emails and all the updates and access to the question of the week and those kind of member services. But we also get all of our policy membership services through them as well. So when they have, when there's changes to the laws, things like that, we also get advocacy on behalf of school boards within the legislature and within, covers quite a bit. And so then if this gets approved, someone, and I think it could even be Denise, or the board chair, goes online and does the Survey Monkey and says, this was passed at a school board meeting.
So this just looks like we approved the increase. So we're saying it's okay that they're increasing our dues.
Yes.
All right, is there someone willing to, make a motion that we say it's okay? The increase?
Diane, I would move to approve. All work on it.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Lance. Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passed unanimously. I was reading that. Denise, yes, you can sign that as clerk of court. Are you willing to go out and do that? Great. Thank you. Next item, long-range facility plan.
Yeah. So I'm going to preface this with saying that I'm going to ask the board to I'm going to recommend that you table this for a vote tonight. So we meaning Rebecca, Sue, and Diane, and a group of central office administrators interviewed architects, firms for long-range facility plan study. Ultimately, we selected A&E Architects to do that work. We met with them late last week to put together the proposal. They're probably 90% done with it, but still missing some pieces from engineering and demographer in their fee proposal. They are willing to work at risk. Right now, there's things that need to happen to move this along, given the timeline that we had given them, but was not ready to bring that fully forward to the board to approve as far as the expenditure. So just asking if we could table it for this meeting, and then we'll bring it back for the December meeting.
Okay, so this would take a motion.
Yeah, I move to table this for a further vote at, time announced at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Ursula. So we've got, any discussion about this? Okay, thanks, Rebecca, thanks, Ursula. We've got a motion made and seconded to, move this long-range facility plan, to table it until a future meeting, till we have more information on it. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, policy updates.
Denise, did you want to talk about this one? I can too. I've talked about it 4 times now. This is the third and final reading, so this is asking for board action to change the we call that fixed asset rate from $5,000 to $25,000, which was actually at the recommendation of our auditor.
Move to adopt this wondrous policy. Thank you, Denise, for bringing it up yet again, 4th time.
Second that.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Hopefully that means we're done discussing that one. That's great. Thank you for bringing that up, Denise. Great decision. Okay. Moving on to consent agenda. This is elementary only.
I'd move to approve consent.
Thank you. Is there an elementary trustee willing to second that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Scott. Any other discussion by elementary? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. District-wide consent agenda. There another trustee willing to make a motion?
I move to approve the district-wide.
Thank you, Heather.
I second.
Thank you, Lloyd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, let's see, informational items and reports. Trustee reports. Let's start here, Lance.
I had a nice visit with my schools that I'm a liaison for at Peterson. I'm gonna go visit where my kids used to go to school, and it's good to know that Bob's still there. Keeps an eye on the place. And then a good conversation too with Jody Barber over at LAC, so exciting to see what she's up to and, planning for the future. Hearing about some of the struggles she's having. So, yeah, it's a good visit. Really good.
Just, you may have missed me last meeting or cheered that I wasn't here, whichever. It's because the KNS had their combined concert, and really, if you guys get a chance to go to any concert of the year, I say KMS's combined concert, because you really get to see how much progress, sixth grade to seventh grade to eighth grade, and it is astounding. I mean, it's just, anytime we talk about teaching anything, I'm like, how does one teacher take 60 students on 15 different instruments, and in 1 year teach them to read, to write, to play, and then to improve? And it's just, it's really always, just to me, it's just this feel-good moment. So it was great this year, and I'd say next year, be sure and go if you can.
Bill.
I had a chance to stop by Smith Valley School for one of their school board meetings, and it was kind of nice. It was a special meeting, so it was over pretty quick. They just voted on how to seed the lawn. But it was nice to meet the folks there. And I also had a chance to check in with Michelle here at Flathead, trying to get an update on what's.
Nothing.
Nothing going on tonight?
No?
We're all thinking about you later tonight.
Oh, I'm gonna go referee hockey.
Jennifer.
I talked with Bill Sullivan over at Russell School, and pre-COVID, my kiddo goes there, and we did a random acts of kindness thing. They have a big week of kindness in January, and so we did some stuff at the school there, and so I talked to him about doing it again this year, because I think it's really important to implement kindness in the schools. So I'm really looking forward to meeting with him again to come up with some really good ideas, like now for in January, and everybody should do it. Got a couple updates. A few weeks ago, I got to attend Paramount School Board meeting. That was a very fast school board meeting. I mean, like in and out in half an hour. They were kind of discussing some of the same challenges we are facing with substitutes, bus driver shortages, but one of the challenges they're having that we are not seeing are their low enrollment numbers. So they're working on trying to get those numbers up. But I did invite them to the legislative meet great. I've got Crescent board meeting on Thursday. With them as well. Kalispell Prairie is on the 15th. And an update for the personnel committee meeting that we had on the 2nd. We got to hear an update from Mike Kelly. Brad kind of touched on that tonight with part of the high school. It was really neat to hear what he's got going on. I mean, he's had the position since, and he's doing some pretty amazing. So we also got to hear from House, and she was letting us know some of the other learning opportunities she's working on with the young kids and connecting them with different groups in our community, and just really gathering the community around whole child learning aspect. So we got to learn a bunch of, I could go on and on, but if you want to hear more about that, I can fill you in. We also got to hear from Casey. She's with the Hardwalker, and she gave us an update going on and some of the services that she's providing for our students and our families that are in need in our,
What?
I spoke with, Tanner Smith, who's one of the board members, for, Summers Lakeside School District, and, thought it was interesting that they put forth as a preventative measure, for school break-ins, basically, Presidia gel, which all the teachers have now been trained on. He wound up paying for it for the school, but it's just a self-defensive measure. You know, somebody who comes in to do harm to kids can't really do a whole lot if they can't see and breathe. But it's a neat system because it also has a reagent, so if somebody accidentally gets affected by it, there's something to wash it off in it. And then I also went to Bozeman to cheer on Glacier High School at the state, playoffs, but, didn't go as we hoped, but, it was neat to go out there and support them and, to be there afterward.
So for the curriculum committee, our meetings have been a little bit different this year, which is really exciting. There has been a lot of interest. Curriculum is kind of a subject that people are having a lot of interest in, and so our focus in the meetings so far has really been looking at where do standards come from and what do we do with them. Looking for places where there might be misinformation in the community, better ways to communicate what we're doing, ways to make sure that what we're doing in one school is working for everybody. And so we had Tracy Ketchum, who had been at the board meeting, I guess like a month ago, and they had talked about what they were doing with the science standards and curriculum. And so we were kind of digging deeper into how did they come up with that? How can that be used in the rest of the school? And so that's exciting. And looking forward, one of Matt and Keith's suggestions has been to go out into the schools more for our meetings. And so I think our committee meetings are going to maybe be on location some, which is really exciting. Those will all be posted. Personally, I guess I'll just go ahead and brag on my kid. He won at the speech tournament, and I'm just so crazy proud of him. That's it.
For the finance committee, met last Friday and go over the elementary and high school budgets, which are right where we need to be. Other stuff.
Well, why don't we just start off with, administrator reports right there. Thanks, Denise.
Thank you. I just want to report that, the business office is going through a software update, from 19.4 to 22.3. There will be some new features in the program, and it's kind of, it's not just, flip a switch, and we have this new upgrade. We actually have to test all of our processes, from accounts payable, payroll, and, student activities, everything that we use it for. And they have a checklist for us, and so we're in the middle of doing that. We're hoping that'll be done within the next 3 to 4 weeks. After that upgrade is done, then we'll have, e-finance coming in for a business process review. And what they do is, review how we use the program and, just take, recommendations on what we can, use it better and, if we're doing it right, that kind of thing. I'm excited to, get through that. I have a list of questions about this morning for them. So anyway, it's a good, program. And then the other thing I'd like to do tonight is move this clock along. I got it about 6 weeks ago from Sue, and it's time.
That's just good timing.
Yes, it is.
But,
Anyway, so my understanding of the meaning behind this clock is to award it to someone who is, looking for helping helping us save time and use our time more valuable, more efficiently. And, I would like to, pass it on to Mr. Peter Prospero. And my reasoning for that is, we, in the business office, we, work with all the different school sites, on all the numerous and time-consuming, transactions. We have a lot of deadlines, that they need to meet and processes that they have to follow. And the reason for that is because we have our own, we have state reporting, we have payments that need to be made on time. The most important one being payroll out, to the staff, paying our bills on time, and, I needed my staff to be able to meet with all those folks. And Peter has been very instrumental in gathering people together for us and being there and being supportive of having, both sides, kind of talk about, what our challenges are. And, really appreciate the support. He's made things, I think, more efficient. And so it's yours.
It's about time.
I just turned it back, so.
Oh. What is that schedule?
I have nothing to report, so.
Well, but Peter, it's your time. You're saving time.
I'll leave Matt time.
Okay.
I'll yield my time to Superintendent Hill. Superintendent Hill has no, additional report tonight.
Okay, well, then we're gonna move on. What about, safe return to school?
Are
We safe?
we're still safe to return to school.
Any reports on COVID and anything?
No, no updates. We look for guidance or any additional information from the county. Things be kind of settling down a little bit in terms of, the most recent variants. I think people have that opportunity to get a fourth booster now, if they want to, so things are quiet.
Right, this would be the second public comment time period. If there's anyone else who wanted some public comment time? I don't see it. Moving on. This is actually the point where we're going to adjourn into executive session, so maybe we could take a 5-minute break. So unless you're involved with this next executive session, it is time then that you could clear the room, and the rest of us could take 5 minutes.
All right.